The morning of Marcus' wedding arrived draped in the kind of nervous excitement that usually surrounds such events. But for me, Emma Anderson, it began the way every family gathering had for the past 5 years, with a phone call from my mother. Her voice came sharp and rehearsed through the receiver while I stood in my Fairmont hotel suite, staring at the mustard-yellow bridesmaid's dress hanging limply in front of me. "Emma, sweetheart," she began, her tone a mixture of syrupy sympathy and veiled criticism. "Remember to dress appropriately. And please, try not to embarrass the family today. Being around Marcus' friends and Patricia's family, well, you know how accomplished they all are. Not everyone can be a doctor or a lawyer, so just keep that in mind." I zipped the dress up with a sigh, catching my reflection in the mirror. I look like a diseased banana, I thought grimly. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be invisible enough," I said, forcing a smile. "And Emma," she continued, "if anyone asks about your job, just don't go into detail. It's Marcus' big day. We don't want people feeling uncomfortable about your situation." My situation. That's what they called it now. Not my career, not my achievements, not the global empire I had built from scratch. Just a situation, as though I suffered from a chronic illness they needed to shield others from. The reality? I was the founder and CEO of Anderson Global Logistics, a $4.2 billion supply chain management company operating in 47 countries with over 85,000 employees. We handled distribution for nearly 1/3 of the Fortune 500, revolutionized cold chain logistics for pharmaceuticals, and were 3 days away from finalizing the largest merger in industry history. Yet, in my family's eyes, I worked at a grocery store. The misconception had started innocently. 7 years ago, while building my first distribution center, I'd taken a night shift at Safeway to study the mechanics of retail from the inside. Inventory flows, supplier relations, customer behavior. Most CEOs read spreadsheets. I stocked shelves from midnight to dawn, scanning barcodes until my fingers ached. But when relatives asked what I was doing back then, I'd said simply, "I'm in food retail. I'm learning supply chain." Somewhere along the way, that became "Emma works at a grocery store." The first time I tried to correct them, Uncle Richard had chuckled, patting my shoulder. "That's sweet, honey. Ambition is good at your age." When I mentioned hiring my first 100 employees, Aunt Susan had assumed I'd become a grocery department manager. After enough dismissals, I stopped trying. It became easier to let them cling to their delusions. The rehearsal dinner the night before had been brutal. Patricia's family radiated success. A father who owned a construction empire, a brother who just sold his tech startup for $50 million, a mother who was a respected federal judge. They were accomplished, gracious, and clearly expected Marcus' family to measure up. So Emma, Jason, Patricia's brother, had asked over cocktails, "Marcus mentioned you work in food service. Are you planning to open a restaurant?" Before I could answer, Marcus interjected with a chuckle. "Oh no, Emma's not the entrepreneur type. She works at a grocery store, but it's honest work." The pause that followed was suffocating. Jason, too polite to press, quickly pivoted to Marcus' legal career, while Patricia's parents exchanged subtle glances, no doubt questioning how a family of professionals had produced me. Later, I overheard Patricia's mother murmuring to mine at the bar, "Patricia says Emma might be godmother to their children someday." "Oh, Emma would love that," my mother replied. "She's wonderful with kids. Of course, she's not in a position to be much of a financial influence, but she's very loving. We help her out when we can." Financial influence. I'd retreated to my room after that, drowning myself in acquisition reports just to remember who I really was. Wedding day. Hair and makeup was another gauntlet. Patricia's bridesmaids were surgeons, entrepreneurs, consultants. "And Emma works in grocery," Patricia explained with a bright smile. The others responded with polite nods, their eyes sliding over me as though I were an extra in their dazzling film. I simply smiled back, withholding the fact that my upcoming business trip would involve signing a $1.8 billion merger in Singapore. The ceremony itself sparkled, Patricia radiant in lace, Marcus glowing with happiness. I held my bouquet at the altar, enduring whispers from relatives behind me. "Poor Emma," Aunt Susan muttered. That color doesn't flatter her. Another whispered back, it's the stress. Financial pressure ages you. By the reception, I was numb. Toasts flowed like champagne, celebrating every Whitfield and Anderson except me. Marcus raised his glass. To my sister Emma, who flew in all the way from Seattle despite the expense. She works in food service, honest work, and we love her for her simpler values. The pitying applause hit me like a slap. My cousin smiled at me the way people smile at charity cases. Later, on the terrace, I overheard Patricia's mother again. Marcus, is Emma financially stable? I worry about her being a role model. Marcus laughed. She's sweet, but come on. She's worked at the same grocery job for 7 years. Mom helps her with rent sometimes. She's not built for ambition. That lie twisted in my gut. I'd never once taken a dime from them. I texted David, my head of security. Pick up. 10 minutes. Back inside, Marcus tapped his glass once more. He praised the achievers in the room, entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, and then, with pity in his eyes, gestured toward me. And then there's my sister Emma. She works in food service. She reminds us that not everyone can be a CEO, and that's perfectly okay. The applause was condescending, sympathetic. That's when David appeared beside me, his voice carrying authority. Miss Anderson, the helicopter is ready. Your 9 p.m. Singapore call is waiting. The Chin Industries merger closes Monday. The Tokyo markets open in 3 hours. The board needs your approval on the $1.8 billion acquisition. The room froze. Champagne glasses stilled. Marcus' jaw dropped, the glass slipping from his hand to shatter across marble. I stood, smoothing the hideous mustard-yellow dress. I tried to keep business separate from family, but international markets don't respect wedding schedules. Silence. Stares. Disbelief. Then, slowly, I explained. My company, my employees, my empire. Forbes list. Global contracts. Cold chain revolutions. 85,000 jobs. $4.2 billion in revenue. The truth spread like wildfire across the room. Phones came out. Someone whispered, she's worth $2.3 billion. Patricia gasped, Marcus, you said she worked at a grocery store? I said food retail. I corrected calmly. I never lied. You just never listened. Their faces burned with shame. Aunt Susan demanded, if you're so wealthy, why live like this? Why drive that old car? Because money isn't everything, I replied. I thought family was. David leaned in. Miss Anderson, we really must leave. 18,000 jobs depend on this merger. I nodded, then turned to Marcus one last time. Marriage is about loving someone as they are, not as you assume them to be. I hope you remember that. As I walked out, the crowd parted like I was royalty. 5 minutes earlier, they pitied me. Now they looked at me with awe, envy, and embarrassment. On the rooftop, the helicopter waited. David opened the door. How was the wedding, ma'am? Educational, I said, buckling my seatbelt. As Seattle's skylines sparkled beneath us, I smiled for the first time in years. Humility, I realized, should never mean invisibility. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. After all, Anderson Global hadn't revolutionized the world by staying silent.